Hi everyone. This is Amalina speaking from YSEALI Seeds for the Future. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Unfortunately, we encountered some technical glitches, and this is actually a re-recording of the webinar, but I will be sharing exactly what I have said during the webinar, and we will be also providing some slides. And if you guys have any questions in the future, we will be hosting an Ask Me Anything on December 14th, so like stay tuned until then. So yeah, let's proceed with what we're going to do today. So we have done some welcome and introduction. So I will probably just introduce myself a little bit before that. So my name is Amalina, and I am working as the lead for the YSEALI Seeds for the Future. And fun fact about me is that back in 2015, I was actually one of the first winning teams to win the YSEALI Seeds for the Future. So hopefully you guys are going to be in good hands. I have experienced what you guys are going through. And yeah, I'll be happy to offer any help if you guys have any questions. So some housekeeping rules back then was that we will be changing all our names and your team name and your country, and then back then we had like our participants on mute, but they were very engaged. It was so fun. We played a lot of games together, and so there will be a Q&A question. So what I'm going to do after this is that I will be answering 30 of the questions that has been asked, of the frequently asked questions, and all of these questions will also be written, so you can also read the responses that we have too. So I'll be skipping through all the games, but basically we kind of asked where everyone is from, and everyone get to annotate where they're from. It was really fun to see where everyone's from. And then we also played this or that, Southeast Asian version. So you can also, like, I guess, like, as I'm going through these slides really quickly, you guys can also, like, in mentally tell me, like, which team are you on. And the first one is like whether you are team rice or team noodles. It was a clear winner. It was a landslide winner. Rice clearly dominated this region. And then it was we also asked, like, if they were to go to travel, would they be interested in a historical city or modern city? Are they interested in looking back in history and, like, what the ancestors have contributed, or are they interested in, like, moving forward and, like, being excited for the future? I mean, obviously a lot of people love both. And it was a lot more balanced too. And then we also talked about preferences. If we were to go on a healing journey, where would you like to heal at? Some people want to bask in, like, the magnificence of the forest, and, like, many of you guys also want to be so close to the waters and, like, be by the beach. So it's really fun to, like, get to know so many participants at that time. And then we also have, like, the most common this or that, which is coffee or tea, but Southeast Asian version. So, like, we have the Vietnamese Thin, and also like a Malaysian pulled tea. And I know that milk tea is also very prevalent in multiple countries such as Myanmar and Thailand too. So I love that we have so many things in common in all these places. We also had a very intense debate about, like, preferring football or soccer, and also takraw, which is a lot more regional and local. And then finally, people had to pick between Taylor Swift and Lisa Blackpink. So it was also a very intense debate. And, like, once the ice has been broken, we congratulated all the applicants. Congratulations. And, like, if you're reading this, or if you're, like, watching this, congratulations. Like, that means your team has also been shortlisted to proceed with the stage 2. And knowing how competitive the nature of this program is, like, it is such a huge deal. And regardless, you should pat yourself in the back, because you guys really did it. You guys had really great quality applications, and we're really excited to hear more and, like, read more about your proposal. So let's move on to what is the general feedback. So, like, we believe that you guys have moved on to the second stage because of the following factors. First is that your proposal is relevant to the 4 YSEALI themes and all the SDGs. And then you guys have very innovative and creative ideas. And then we think that, your project is realistic, it's feasible, and the implementation plan is feasible and realistic. And then we believe that like the impact and reach has extended, to a deeper level, like either, to a larger group of audience, or like, to a deeper rooted community engagement. And then we also looked at your team dynamics. In each an individual team member has contributed, or like has a lot of strengths to offer to the rest of the core team members. And like, you also have experience, so we think that is relevant for you guys to work together on a project. And then lastly is, we believe that your budget is reasonable. And I think, like, that's something that we also really pay close attention to. So, unfortunately, this is not the end of the road. There will still be a treacherous journey ahead of you. So, because of that, we also want to make sure that you guys are all well equipped to move forward in your stage two application. So, let's talk about the proposal development framework. So, this is where you guys are. So, this is a summary of what the application stage looks like. And so you guys currently are at stage two, shortlisted applications. So now we have reached out to shortlisted applications to submit a full proposal and a full budget. And if we do have any questions, we will be interviewing team members. But it is not essential for us to interview you. Like sometimes we will just interview people that we actually might have follow-up questions for, but not necessarily everyone. And do not be alarmed if you are not called for an interview. And then afterwards, we will be scoring, and like, we will be releasing an announcement for all the winners. So speaking of the winners, we have received questions about, like, what does that look like? Does every tier have, like, different slots or anything? So yes, so there are three different tiers, and so one of them is the earlier one, which is an emerging leader for new solutions, or if it's still in ideation phase. And this is like, the budget limit is $5,000, and it will be given to 12 winning teams. And then the second one is a featured project, whereas, where such teams have already maybe done a pilot, or you have had, like, some early success, and you're looking to, like, widen your impact. And for this, the budget limit is $8,000, and it will be given to nine winning teams altogether. And then the last one is Impact Accelerator. So these groups of people are usually a bit more established. They are ready to scale, and they have already have a, like, proven track record of where they are. And this limit is $12,000, and it is going to be for 4 winning teams. So now let's look at your email, because some of you guys have asked, like, well, I actually applied for a 5,000 budget because I feel like I'm in ideation phase, but I was told that, like, my project will be under featured projects. And the reason for this is because we had a scoring committee who will actually, like, determine where you are in your progress. And if we feel like you have already done, some level of projects, or like has some level of impact in your communities, then we might upgrade you to like a bigger project. Or sometimes, where you are asking for 12,000, but we feel like you might not be ready yet with your impact, then we might, like, put you on a lower tier, which is, either the featured project or the emerging leaders. But regardless, there are pros and cons to both. Like, for example, emerging leaders is obviously less competitive than Impact Accelerator, because Impact Accelerator can only be given for winning teams. So yeah, it all, it's all nuanced, and like, regardless, they both have pros and cons. So yeah, just make sure that when you read your email, make sure that you stick to the budget limit that was given to you, because that is based on the evaluation of the scoring committee. So let's go through like all the important documents that you have to go through in your email. So like the first one is the application guideline. So this application guideline is best read with the website's help center. So like, chances are if you have any questions, most of the time they're all gonna be there. And we recommend that you really scour through and like really read through everything to make sure that you have read everything, because if you have not read it, then it will, and you decided to email the organizers, then it will take a while for us to like get back to you. So like that might be a bit concerning, or like you might be pressed for time. And then the second document that you obviously need is the proposal template. So the proposal template is like what you will be using that for. You should stick to that document, um and you should not use any other like proposal templates, because the evaluating committee will actually be evaluating your scores and your proposal based on that template. And if you use a different template, they might not be used to it, and that actually might jeopardize your proposal. And then the last one is the budget template. So also follow this. I know that like different people have like different budget templates, but just copy paste what you already have into our template. That will make everyone's life a lot easier. Because just remember that we will be reading a lot of applications. So like, sometimes people do not really have patience for, like too many variations. Um, so some key points about the application guideline is that it should not exceed 5 pages. I repeat, your proposal should not exceed 5 pages, and this is just referring to the proposal, not including the budget. So you still have like 5 pages is like, I feel it's quite generous. We also have like a word limit, so make sure that you stick to those word limits. So yeah, if you exceed more than 5 pages, the reviewers will only read the first 5 pages. And we will discard like, anything that's beyond page 6, 7, and 8. And then if we do not have anything that we needed within the first 5 pages, that will actually be considered as an incomplete application. So make sure that you be really careful about that. And then for project timeline, it has to be March to November 2025. So we actually received a question about, like, can it be like shorter, for example, just April to June? That's totally fine as long as the timeline is within the duration of March to November. And as long as you can prove that, just within this short time, you are able to provide the impact that you promised. So that's something that we will be like evaluating too. And then all core team members must fulfill all qualifying requirements. And this is really important because you do not want to be disqualified at this progress. So sometimes, like I think in the past we actually had, of course, YSEALI members are all amazing. Yeah, overly accomplished, amazing people. So like, sometimes some of you guys are applying to study abroad and things like that. And if you do not think that you will be able to qualify the requirements, I recommend that you really think through, so that you will not jeopardize the proposal of your team members. So yeah, like so make sure that you are also residing in Southeast Asia. Make sure that you are able to commit throughout all these times. And yeah, just fulfill like the age requirements and things like that, because that's an easy disqualification that will jeopardize like the rest of your proposal. And then, as I mentioned, all core team members must commit to the program until January 2026. I know it's a long time, but it's also a lot of money that is given. So we really need to make sure that, like team members are all committed to the program. So let's go through the next document, which is the application template. So we have seen like, people requesting to edit, like, requesting access to edit. So you do not need the access to edit. You just need to make a copy and then you can edit on your own. And as you can see, like, it's pretty standard, because we also want to avoid you guys having to rewrite everything. So make sure that, what you have written is sufficient, and we can also refer back to your first guide. And we also have experience, like we also had questions where people are asking, like, can we modify some of the projects from stage 1 to stage 2? I recommend that you do not make, like, significant changes or modifications to your guidelines, because the reason why you are on stage 2 is based on your stage 1 application. Only make necessary adjustments, like, when it comes to, for example, if you are selected for a different tier and then you have a little bit more money to play with, to, like, for example, like, create an extra program, or like, buy more materials, or like invite more people. That's something that's possible, but then, the idea should, remain what it is. It should not be completely different than what it was. So we will be also watching that, and if there is like a big modification, or if there are modifications, we recommend that you note them and justify them in your application. So for applications, here are like some of the questions that we will be asking ourselves when we are reviewing your application. And this is something that you should also be asking yourself too. So the first one is that, what makes your program so unique? Because we are going to be reviewing hundreds and hundreds of applications. So is it just another like social media awareness project? Or is it something that you think is like, very common? So, look around, like, and see what's out there in the community, and like, how does that truly, truly make you a unique organization, or like a unique project? Because like ultimately we, we also want to find something that is innovative and creative. And then the second question that you should be asking yourself is, why should you be the one implementing the project? Like, ultimately, who are we to enter, like, someone's space? Do you have the skills, the experience, and the trust of the community? Like, so like, I give an example like, can I, a Malaysian from Kuala Lumpur, the urban city, go to the village in Kampot in Cambodia to talk to like pepper farmers? Like, am I, like, the person to be, like, even though I might have the skills and experience, but do I have the trust of the community? Can I speak the same language as them? Do I have the cultural sensitivities that they do? So this is like, another question that you should be asking, like, who are the team members, and what do they have to offer in this project? And like, why do you think that, the beneficiaries want to like connect with you? And then, does this problem solve a core issue, or are you just addressing a symptom of an issue? So like the example that I used was like, I have a leaky pipe under my sink. And then when I had a leaky pipe, um like, what do I do? Do I just put like, a tape over like the leak and just hoping that it will all go away? Or do I have to, like, replace the pipe? So this is like, something that you should also be looking into. So we recommend that you do the problem tree exercise, and it's a really fun exercise. You know how like 5-year-olds will always ask their parents like, why, and then why? So like, why is the cloud why is the sky blue? And then, the mom will say something, and they're like, but why? So like, that's like kind of similar here, where you keep asking yourself why until you have identified, a core problem that you think you would like to identify. And then the last one is like, is your program inclusive? And we also recommend like the JETSI analysis. So the gender equality, that disability and social inclusion. And what I mean by this is that when you have a project for the community, is everyone involved in the key, in the decision making process? So for example, where are you hosting your program at? Are you hosting it in a local temple where menstruating women cannot enter the space? Or are you doing it like, on the second floor of a school where like wheelchair bound people are not able to access it so easily? or are you doing it, are you doing your program in the afternoon where, like, mothers would need to, like, leave early and like pick up their children and prepare for dinner. So these are, like, some of the things that we should also be considering too. All right. So, let's talk about money. So, this is like the budgeting strategies, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have a lot of questions about this. So, again, kind of similar to the last one, please make a copy of the of the document. You do not need access, and then we also provided a sample of a budget on the second sheet, so you can also kind of refer to that on what that looks like. And here are some of the tips, but on the top of my head, what I so here are like some of the key points. The first one is that to make sure that your total requested budget is within the tier limit. It's very important that it will be within the tier limit, because if not, that would probably, like, strongly jeopardize your application. The second one is that pay attention to budget restrictions. So for example, like, heavy machineries are actually not allowed to be put in the budget. So for example, if you want to help like an indigenous community with if you want to help indigenous community installing like solar panels in their communities, this is actually not allowed because it requires an installation and also the purchase of a commercial machinery. You are also not allowed to, like, do renovations or constructions of buildings. So yeah, those are like some of the things that you can read through. So make sure that you read them through in the application guideline. And then for the budget sample, yeah, as I mentioned, we have provided a sample on the second sheet. So, like, make sure you kind of go through that. In terms of like page limit, the budget should not exceed 2 pages. And then, like, the budget should also be reasonable. So, like, yeah, you cannot ask like $1,000 for like the purchase of pencils or something like that, because if it's not reasonable or realistic, then like, we will probably be picking people, like, projects that will be more reasonable with their project with their budget. And then lastly is, like, for future amendments, you can make changes. So, like, don't feel like everything has to be set in stone right now, but you also have to communicate changes on the budget, especially if it's more than 20% of the category. So for example, like, you found out, like, your budget for travel is actually not enough to pay for flights, because you only put like $50 for flights, but it's actually $150. So you have to, like, pull the money from elsewhere. So that means maybe you take a little bit from like the workshop materials or something. And because of that, you would have to, like, communicate with us with a justification. One last tip that I want to put on the budget is that, like, you should also consider, like, additional fees within those budgets. So for example, like, there's the bank's currency exchange rate that might be a bit more expensive. So, like, make sure that you are a little bit more generous, or you allow yourself a little bit more leeway in your budget application, so that you will not be stuck. And then, like, sometimes you also have like additional charges, service charges, and things like that. So make sure that you have already added into it. So, like, make sure that the range is not too tight for you to, like, play with. And then, yeah, so these are like some of the budget restrictions. I mean, like, some of them are just limits, some of them are, like, complete prohibition. So for example, prohibition on profit generation. So what this means is that, like, no body or no team member should be gaining, like, should be gaining anything financially or in kind resources from, like, the generation of this program. So for example, like, if you were to, like, create a program, and then, like, you charge people for it, no, you are not allowed to charge people for it. And like, some people have asked if social enterprises are allowed to apply, or like, other profit making bodies are allowed to apply. It's fine, but as long as you can guarantee that, like, for this specific program, your social enterprise will not gain any financial gains from this, and we will not so yeah, basically you will not gain any profit or financial benefit from this. And then the second thing that is prohibited is political activities. You should not be using this project should be like, non-partisan. So you should not, focus on any like local or American elections, or like, be affiliated with any political parties in either your country or in the United States, or like any country for that matter. And it's also like, we also do not recommend using the funding for religious activities. So like, of course, like, religious institutes can still apply. So for example, like, the local youth group at the local mosque or like local church can initiate activities, but you should not be like, include like prayers or like, any form of worship inside your program. So like, yeah, so please make sure that, you be careful on that. And then lastly is that, the next prohibition is on academic research. So like, if you have an invention that, is going to save like climate change tomorrow, that's great, but like, make sure that you do not use like, YSEALI seeds for the future funding for it, because there's plenty of academic grants out there. But this is just not the avenue for it, because we are an impact incubator, and like, we want to support programs and also like community projects, and not academic research. So like, if you're applying for um research or like lab access or like, experimentations and things like that, that will not fly. And then, as I mentioned, capital expenditures and construction. So constructions are a no-no, and then like capital expenditures are also a no-no. So like, those are all explained in the application guideline on what that means. But, simply said, it's like, do not build buildings with this money, do not make renovations, and also do not buy heavy machineries. Those are not encouraged or like not allowed. Entertainment and alcohol, obviously alcohol is prohibited. And then like, for entertainment, what we mean is like, more towards like excessive entertainment. We don't want people to like, charter a yacht, to like just party at the program after, as a celebration or whatever. Like, of course, like maybe like, very simple cultural experience, that's totally fine, just to like yeah, so like, now no excessive entertainment. I guess that's like, a more, yeah, a more specific way of saying that. And then for personal expenses and per diems, I think so per diems should be reasonable. So if you're traveling and you need some money to like, just kind of like pay for accommodations and food and things like that, that's allowed, but then it has to be reasonable and modest. For personal expenses, so let's say you are traveling to like the community site, and then you decided to like, extend your stay for a few days. You can do that, but you should not be claiming that such personal expenses on like YSEALI seats money. So like, just stick to like only the program days, and then after that you will be on your own, and you should not be reimbursed. I mean, you should not be like claiming for reimbursement. So cash awards are fine, but there is, I mean, like, I think the disclaimer is to make sure that they are modest and reasonable. And this is kind of like connected to the stipends and honorariums down there. So like, the limit for honorariums is $200 per speaker. So one speaker should only get like $200. So non-allocable overhead costs and salaries. So this is like basically running your office, like, so you will not be able to use the funding to like, pay for your office or administrative processes for like, for the year. You cannot use it for paying bills or paying people's salaries. And then for travel restrictions, you have to I mean, obviously some of the program requires some level of traveling, but we say that, like, it has to be just, like, it has to be reasonable and it has to be justified. Should that be like, should that be just two travelers, or should that be like, 15 people traveling with you, and like why so like, yeah, make sure that it is reasonable and also justifiable. And yeah, so stipends and honorariums have already been covered. But yeah, so we recommend that you read your application guidelines to find out more about it. All right. So, so what's next, right? How do we talk about impact? And this is like, when you go to the infinity and beyond. Um, so for us, like, we prioritize having projects that has a strong potential for sustainability. And sustainability here does not necessarily mean like environmental sustainability, which is of course like, an important thing too, but sustainability also here means like, to be able to withstand and also to like to continue its impact once the funding runs out. So we recommend, trying out the theory of change exercise with your friends, and just like kind of asking yourself like, why are you doing this? And like, you guys are all amazing people. You're going to be off, like, pursuing your studies in the future. You'll be moving, like, you'll be finding jobs in the future. So how is this project going to continue staying, like, without, with or without you? So yeah, that's something for you to consider about. And because of that, your project should also take a village. It should not just be like, just three core team members, like, stepping in a community, but it should be obviously a community effort, and you are just orchestrating, this large production of a community project. So who are you inviting to your space? Like, also ask yourself, who are your team members? How well do you guys know each other? How well do you work with each other in the past? And then ask yourself also, who are your stakeholders and your partners who is going to help make your project a success? Um, and like, ask yourself too, like, what are the efforts that you have done to build trust with the beneficiaries and stakeholders? Is this like, is this solution something that they really want? Like, what makes you say that? So we recommend that you also use a stakeholder analysis to, to show us, like, you guys have already, like, been to the community site, and this is like, some of the behaviors that you guys have seen, like, some of the evaluations or the assessments that you guys have made, for us to like understand how much effort and work you have put in understanding your beneficiaries and your stakeholders. And like, if there are people who agree, like if there are other local organizations who agree to collaborate with you, perfect, that'll be even better. So yeah, we really want to see all these things. And most importantly, the question is, what happens when the funding runs out? Because like, we can only give you money for like, such a short amount of time. Come January 2026, what's next? Is this going to be just like a one-time thing? Or is this going to be like, a self-sustaining thing? So fun fact, I co-founded like, this environmental accelerator called Chili Padi Academy, and it's still ongoing up until today. I am no longer part of the committee or like, the people who made it happen, but we're very grateful to like, create an exit strategy that allows people to sustain over the years and like continue to continue its impact to the rest of the region. So yeah, that's something that you can also consider. What happens when the money runs out? So yeah, what kind of resources are you going to tap in? All right, so woo, this is it, guys. Like, you guys are ready to submit. So make sure that you submit on the submission link and not, just respond to the email with like, all the documents. Everything should be in PDF form. And yeah, so it doesn't really matter like whether you are doing the document on a Google Doc or if you're doing it on a Word document. It's totally fine, anything, because ultimately we only just want to see the PDF. So AI usage, I mean, like, obviously this is the 21st century. Everyone uses AI tools. I'm not going to pretend that we're all like, so not reliant on AI. But just be wary. because like, stick to your idea, to your original idea that you have done. But like, if you are writing, please make sure that a lot of people are writing with AI too. So like the language is very, very, very similar and striking. So like, as I'm reading the reviews, I just know who is using AI. And it kind of made, like, of course, like, you can do that, but like I do know that there is a reliance there. And like I'm not sure how much do I want to trust this proposal if they are so reliant on AI tools. So that's something that you guys should consider. Maybe you can use it for like, to make sure that, your grammar is okay, or like, your messaging is okay. But, ultimately I recommend that you are the one drafting the writing itself, so that you will be the one to, like, the narrative is from your own words and not the words of a computer. And then do not wait until the last minute to avoid technical hiccups, because we have experienced that, people asking to, like, open it or like let them manually like submit their proposal. And unfortunately we will not be able to do that, because like everything is automated, and we will not be able to extend beyond the stated deadline, because it's also not fair for those people who are able to submit their applications early. So yes, at least, like, many hours on the deadline day. Don't wait until like 11:50 p.m. To answer, and then, like, maybe your file is too big, or like, you had internet outage, or like, just poor connection, or like, just anything can happen when you're doing something really important. So make sure that that you do not wait until the last minute. The earlier the better. And then I know that many people will be asking for individual feedbacks, for, like, unfortunately, because like, as you saw, like only 24, sorry, 24 or 25, sorry, only 25 applications can be yeah, can be selected. And because of that, it's just, it just breaks our heart also to not be able to, like, pick all of you guys. But that is the nature of the program. And sometimes we're not able to provide the individual feedbacks. So yeah, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to, like, kind of do like a grant workshop with everyone, so that we can kind of give, like, a strong submission and stuff. But just attend the Ask Me Anything and ask all your questions, and then yeah, maybe by then you can also see what makes a strong application. And yeah, so we have, like, in the webinar slides, we have linked a lot of stuff. So, and yeah, of course, like, we put a lot of effort into, like, researching like all these things. So like make sure that you try and doing some of the exercises. You don't have to submit the process of the exercises, but you know, it will be very clear and very reflected in your proposal if you do it. So, for the upcoming stage 2 program, like, we want to see, like, here are like some of the scoring criteria. So first, we have to make sure that your project is still feasible. The second one is budget and financial planning. This is this is a lot more important and a lot more emphasized now, because the last one you only did, like, you only gave like a summary, but now we get to see, like, the line by line item. And then the third thing that we want to see is your sustainability and long-term impact. And the fourth one is monitoring and evaluation plan. And then the last one is risk assessment and mitigation. But as a whole, it shows that you really, really thought through this program. So don't wait until, like, the week before, only then you want to do all these exercises, or like you want to work on this proposal, because it will take a long time for you to, like, develop a really good and very solid proposal. Even though it's only 5 pages, those are very heavy 5 pages. Mm, yeah, so here we are done with, like, all the presentation that I have to say. Hopefully it wasn't too long for you guys. But I'm going to go through, like, some of the questions that people have asked. So let's see. Oops, sorry. I I'm such a noob. I just deleted my I just closed my window. So if you can be patient with me. All right. Oh, here we are. Okay, so the first question is like, so some people actually got a shortlisted email, and then after that they did not, and then they got a unsuccessful application email. We apologize for the technical issue, and it's actually because like we have received like double entries from the group, and because of that, like it immediately got like, it will immediately not be read. So because of that, like, the second duplicate will actually be the one that is not that is not uh that's like receiving all these like technical emails. And so we just want you to like be rest assured that you are selected. So keep on working on your stage 2 application. The second question is, can the application template be edited in Word? As I mentioned, yes, you can do that. So it doesn't matter if you're doing it from Microsoft Office, Apple Pages, or Google Docs. It doesn't matter. We just want to see it on PDF form. And make sure you submit them on the submission link, okay? So is it okay to implement the program in a location different from what was proposed? There must be a strong justification why you want to change the location, because like please remember that by selecting this, we also want to be mindful of like diversity, like geographic diversity. So like changing the location means that you're also changing the geographic diversity. So like because of that, that it actually might impact like the likelihood of you getting the grant. So like I do not recommend, do not take this lightly. So make sure that you really have a strong justification as to why you are changing this location. Um, should ideas stick to the original proposal or be modified? Of course, and as I mentioned, like unless your funding has been different than what was given, um, your core concept and idea should remain in its original form. So like minor adjustments, that's fine, but like do not like so you were selected because you wanted to do like a workshop on environment to like the fishing coastal community, and then suddenly you want to do like another workshop for young people in on urban rejuvenation. No, 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 you cannot. So just try not to like deviate too much from your program, your initial core concept, because like the reason why you are selected for stage 2 is because of your stage 1 application. So if it deviates, then we're like, well, are you even consistent? The next one, can core team members be changed during stage 2? There again, everything has to have strong justification. Any slight modifications require justification, because like again, we have picked you because of your team dynamics and what the individual core team members can contribute to this project. So if you are changing them, then we would need to reevaluate your team dynamics, and that might be actually like it actually might jeopardize your application, because we might think like, oh, maybe the team dynamics not that great anymore. So and then the second one, the next question is, can funds from other resources be raised to implement the project? Yes. So this is called cost sharing. And while it is not required, it is definitely like, for us to know that like, you are serious in like, sustaining your project, and like, if anything, I mean, it will not jeopardize your proposal. But it's great, like if you want to have a cost sharing, that's totally fine. So you can have multiple funding, but use the same you cannot use the same proposal or request to apply for the same thing. So like the cost sharing or like the other institute should like be sponsoring you in something else, you know um other limits on on budget items like honoraria. So I mentioned like honorarium, the limit should be only $200. You can read more about it on the application guidelines for a more like in-depth information on like all the limits and restrictions. Can full-time workers also be project members? And like personally, when I was running the YSEALI Seeds for the Future, I was also like a full-time staff in another organization. That's totally fine. But as long as you're able to like show that you are committed and you're able to like balance your time. Yeah, that's a story for another time, but I was pretty bad at like, managing my time. So make sure that, you, yeah, make sure that you can like, be committed. And this is also another thing that you can ask on Ask Me Anything, like sometimes it's just a personal question, like how do you be resilient, or like how do you manage your mental health in like, such a long program. Um can team members pay technical advising fee? So yes, I mean, I guess it like, depends on a case to case basis. As long as we find it reasonable and justifiable for team members to do so. I think like, the core theme of like my Q&A is it reasonable? Is it justifiable? And if it's different, can it be justified? I think like, basically that's like, the theme of like my Q&A right now. So is affiliation with a legal organization necessary to receive funding? So it's not necessary for you to be a legal entity, but yes, because like, this program can be, I mean, the funding can be channeled to individual members. So usually we would like, correspond with like the core, I mean, the lead member. Can a budget be allocated for certificates of gratitude? Yes, of course you can, as long as the cost is reasonable and essential to the project implementation. And in fact, we actually, yeah, like if you have certificates and stuff for your program, sometimes you can reach out to to your local US embassies and your YSEALI coordinators. To like, see if they're interested in like, signing your certificate to like give it a little bit more oomph for your project. And you can also invite like, people from the US embassy to when you're running your project too. Can professional trainers or consultants be paid with the grant? Again, like going back to like reasonable and essential. So like as long as you can prove that, it's justifiable and it's essential for them to be paid, and yeah, you can. But yeah, it also depends on like, what we deem as like reasonable or not. So, and then can equipment and machines be purchased with the grant? And yes, so I mentioned that funding could not be used to purchase heavy machineries and equipments, but you can use them. You can use equipment if you like, for example, your organization has a like, a waste separator that you guys can use. You can use them, but you cannot purchase the money. I mean, you cannot purchase such machines or equipments with the funding. I hope that helps. And then what are the font size and paper margin required for proposals? So yes, this is like, a very important question. So please don't make me squint like this. So yeah, I think like 10 is probably like, the most, the smallest that you can go. And then margins, like, you can still move them around, but try not to move them too much to the point where like, you can't see anything. Basically, if we can't see it, we're not going to read it, and we're not going to try too much to like, fix it or anything. We're just going to read what's going to, what we can see. So if your margin's too off, and then like on the PDF, we can't see, or the margin ran away, I'm not gonna like, get back to you and be like, can you like resubmit? No, 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 I'm not gonna read it. Okay, so yes, please be careful. Can travel insurance for team members be included in the budget? Yes, totally understand that sometimes travel is essential, and of course you want to like protect like, your team members and stuff. So yes, you can use travel insurance. And again, the reasonable and justifiable for travel arrangements for team members. Um, and then can bank transaction fees be included in the budget? We actually recommend that it should be in the budget requested, especially within like, the line items. So like when you are um, thinking about like, all this costs in your local currency, please already add like, the bank currency rate, or like any transaction fees that might be incurred during like, this period, so that you will not be like stuck trying to figure out what you can do. So how is the grant disbursed? Like, is it in lump sum or in tranches? So that's a good question too. So like, it will actually depend on your progress. So yes, it's going to be in tranches. So like, once you have fulfilled like maybe like 50% of your program and like, your progress report, then we will like submit, I mean, we'll provide you with another, we'll provide you with another tranche. And I think somebody asked also like, are you going to like look at the receipts, or like are we going to like, just receive all the money in lump sum? So you will receive the money, like, you don't have to provide us with the receipts, but please keep the receipts in case we find like, some questionable transactions that actually requires a little bit more like investigating, or like, some questions, so and things like that. So keep your receipts, but you don't have to give them unless you are asked. So can the grant fund digital platform building? So like, yes, as long as you're not building actual buildings, you can build like, digital platforms with it. So yes, you can, but again, reasonable and justifiable. And then can project timeline be shorter than 9 months? Yes. So I mentioned this. But yes, you can, but you must demonstrate that you will achieve meaningful impact within that time frame, and like, also sustainability beyond just that, like, 2 months or 1 month or like 1 week that you are saying. So also as long as they take place between March to November 2025. Okay, so can volunteers receive certificates approved by YSEALI? I mentioned this earlier, like, you can also reach out to the local US embassies. They might actually be interested in like helping you and supporting you by like, signing your certificates. But, it also depends on case to case basis and how busy your embassies are. But yes, so certificates are allowed. But the design, like, we will provide you with like a design guideline on how you can put like, certificates and stuff. So we will have like branding guidelines available for you. Can additional expenses be added as budget slots? So unexpected or contingency funds should not be included in the budget line. You have to anticipate for everything. But again, as I mentioned, you can amend them in the future. If it's like, as long as like, you have a justification for it. So like, of course, not trying to encourage you to like, just not research. Do your research and like, try and like not make as much amendments as possible. But if there are contingencies, like for example, there's a flood that you don't know of, there's a flash flood in the school that you're trying to like build your community project at, and because of that you had to travel a little bit more, and that will incur more cost. That's fine. But it should not like, so it should not be included in the budget, but we can like, make amendments to it after. So yeah, please take into account like, such contingencies such as like, fluctuating currency exchange, and also like local purchase taxes. So do all core team members need to attend interviews? No. So like only one representative is fine, because it's just for us to ask like, follow-up questions if we have any. Can mini grants for beneficiaries be allocated under cash awards? Yes, cash awards are allowed, and again, reasonable, modest, essential, justifiable. So yeah, those are like, just think about like, those four words. Are they like, essential, justifiable, reasonable, and modest? Can academic research project use data gathered during the implementation? I mentioned that like, of course, like as academic research is not allowed. But findings from assessments. So for example, if you do like assessments or evaluations from your monitoring and evaluation, you can use those data for future uses too, outside the YCDCs for the future. And then this is the final question. So are unstable exchange rates a concern for budget planning? So we recommend that you use the rate of currency exchange from your local bank. Don't just like Google, like, whatever, use your local bank's rate, so that and like, make sure that you have a little bit more cushion just in case like, it fluctuates, and ensure that there is, a marginal amount to accommodate for higher exchange currency rates. So you will have enough to fund your and implement your workshop successfully. So there were also some questions that were asked, but we actually had to ask like, the US ASEAN office first. So like these questions are, we will follow up, and then we will let you guys know on the Ask Me Anything. The first question is funding tax deductible? So we will ask the US embassies on that. Second is, can team members be paid with a fee or honorarium because they are one of the trainers? The third one is and then we will also be like going through like all these FAQs with them, and then if there are changes to any of the questions, we will let you know. But That's it, guys. I know that I've spoken so much, and this is my second time doing it. So I'm pretty much an expert by now. So just ask me anything. Like maybe on the YSEALI says, like, we apologize if there are, like, late messages or anything. But just always be present and available on, like, slotted times that is already dedicated, like, when our attention is only for you. But that's it for me, and all the best. See you on December 14th.